thumbs up. Carrots. Sorry. You thumbs up. Everyone else thumbs up.
Everyone's ready to go?
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Coghlan Park Community Centre. It's great to see so many people here for the 2025 Federal Election Forum for the Mallee electorate. My name's Anthony Thompson. Very good evening to you. Great to have your company right here, and thanks to you who are joining us on the Weekly Advertiser Facebook page as well. Please make welcome our candidates for the Mallee electorate for the 2025 election. And please welcome our moderator for this evening from the Weekly Advertiser, Editorial Director Lauren Henry.
Thank you, and welcome to the 2025 Federal Election Candidates Forum for the seat of Mallee. My name's Lauren Henry. I'm the editor of the Weekly Advertiser, and along with our ACE radio counterparts, 3WM and Mix FM, we are delighted to host this event tonight for our community. We sincerely thank all candidates for attending tonight. Dr. Anne Webster, the incumbent member for the Nationals, Adam Veach, standing for the Trumpeter Patriots, Nicole Rowan from Australian Greens, Greg Olson from the Australian Labor Party, Chris Leahy from the Australian Citizens Party, and Jeff Barry from the Libertarian Party. We did have all 8 candidates indicate they were coming, but unfortunately we had 2 late withdrawals. So we've had apologies from Vaughan Williams, the candidate for Pauline Hanson's One Nation, and Ashley Gray from Family First. I'm aware that none of our candidates here tonight live close to Horsham, so we appreciate them taking the time to travel here tonight. Travel is certainly something they will need to get used to if they are elected to represent this electorate. Did you know the Mallee electorate is 83,000 square kilometres? In fact, it's a third the size of Victoria. It covers 12 local government areas, from Mildura and Swan Hill in the north, to Gunnewarra and Loddon in the east, along and across to West Wimmera and Hindmarsh in the west, to parts of northern Grampians and Pyrenees and central Goldfields in the south, and Bullock, Yarriambiack and Horsham in between. It's a big electorate made of so many different communities with differing needs, challenges and issues. The seat of Mallee was formed in 1949 with the Australian Country Party member Sir Winton Turnbull, the first elected, until 1972, when fellow Country Party member Peter Fisher took the reins for the next 21 years. Next, it was John Forrest, elected in 1993. The Country Party became the National Party of Australia, and Mr. Forrest held on to that seat until 2013. The Nationals' Andrew Broad served 2 terms until 2019, when Anne Webster was elected. So with that history lesson in mind, and the Mallee electorate clearly being a stranglehold of the Nationals, we turn our attention to the 2025 election. There are so many red-hot issues across our region right now. Renewable energy, mining, recovery from the Grampians fires, access to public land, such as Arapiles, are key challenges in the Wimmera. So with that, I'll throw over to the candidates to introduce themselves. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves, provide a short background, and outline why they are standing for the federal election. They'll hear the sound of the bell at 1 minute to let them know if they've reached their halfway point, and then another bell ring at the 2-minute mark to finish up. Following that, we'll take audience questions. We'll call up those who have questions to line up at the lectern. People are reminded to keep their questions as brief as possible. Questions will be moderated for appropriateness, brevity, and so as to not duplicate on issues. I also have a list of questions that have been submitted by the public to me, that will endeavour to get through, time permitting. We're aiming to have questions wrapped up by 7:50, when candidates will then have 1 minute each to add anything further and state their final pitch. So let's get started. Chris, would you like to go first?
Good evening, everyone. Chris Lay, Citizens Party, Australian Citizens Party. I live around Swan Hill region, live in Lake Boga, have 5 children. My wife's a teacher. I'm currently doing part-time work and also in a caring role for an ageing parent, and also I have a son with a disability. And between all of that, I don't have much time to sleep. However, here I am around again, doing what I think is best for the electorate of Mallee and indeed the nation. So I've been a candidate in Mallee for several elections in a row, and previous to that I ran in the seat of Farrer in New South Wales, just across the border. So I represent the Australian Citizens Party. And I'm wondering, and I know that some of you ask, what have we actually done for you guys? We have represented this electorate in areas like the economic national sovereignty. We have also been proponents in establishing a people's bank across the electorate. Some of the things that you may not be aware that we've actually done: the Post Office People's Bank, the Australian Citizens Party have campaigned for public post office and the People's Bank to re-establish a government bank like the original Commonwealth Bank. Is potentially our greatest political victory to date. After 4 years of tireless campaigning in context of other campaigns, including Christine Holgate's Australia Post regional bank closures, in August, the media announced the Albanese government has put a post office bank on Labor's agenda. The Australian Citizens Party has a vision for the bank to guarantee face-to-face banking and services and access to cash for all communities that lends to local individuals, small businesses, industries, and supports the 4,200 plus post offices across Australia.
Chris, your time's up now.
My time is up. That is short and sweet.
Thank you for going first. Yes.
Next we have Jeff Barry.
Thank you. Hello. Hello. Hang on. We'll get the hang of this in a moment. My name's Jeff Barry. I'm born and raised in the Otway Ranges on a dairy farm, but I've got 4 generations born around Avoca area, and I spent, after growing up on the dairy farm, I went to Melbourne, studied engineering, and also became an arborist. So I'm a tree surgeon, ran my own business for 35 years. My family have grown up, and now I've come back out to amphitheatre, to where I feel more at home, and bought a farm, and I'm running for politics because I'm sick of being on the sidelines, yelling from the sidelines and no one hearing, but it's time to try and get in and see what I can do. I'm running with the Libertarian Party. I've deliberately chosen them over other parties that were independent because I feel that they meet my values also, and some of the main issues that we've got is basically smaller government and less tax. Get more freedom in your life. The person who initially got me involved with or interested in the Libertarian Party was David Lionhelm back in the days when we were called the Liberal Democrat Party. And it was his nanny state Senate inquiry, and that was just showing me how much our government was encroaching on our lives and saying and telling us how to live our lives instead of us learning and having the freedom to do what we like. I've done 678 skydives without the government telling me how to do it safely. I believe that everyone else here knows how to run their own life without the government telling them how to do it safely. How are we on time? All right. I've also spent a lot of time on motorbikes, road racing, motocrossing and other things, but it's really getting back to the freedoms of running your own life, paying less taxes because the government's not efficient in spending your money, Yep, that's basically it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Next, we have Nicole Rowan from the Greens.
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners, the Wodjabuluk people. I appreciate everyone that's here. I think it's really an important part of democracy, and until we actually have truth in political advertising laws in place, and these forums are actually very important. I'm a tax lawyer. I've worked across government, different sections of government, including in negotiating across different states and territories for harmonisation of laws, trying to actually reduce that red tape. I think the challenge for everyone in the Mallee is that this is a safe seat and it's easily ignored. I mean, even when the Nationals are actually in or part of a coalition government with the Liberal Party, it still doesn't necessarily deliver outcomes to safe seats. And I was in Nil recently where the sporting club missed out on their funding for their change rooms because of the sports rorts. So, it just doesn't help. So to have change, you really need to vote for it. The Greens have a really broad, transparent range of policies. They are all on our website, and all federal election platform policies, of which there's many of them across all facets of life, are fully and independently costed by the Parliamentary Budget Office. Every party can do that. The Greens are the only one that get every single policy costed. Those policies include getting dental for all and mental health support into Medicare, building 1,000 new public healthcare clinics so you can see the GP, nurse, dentist or psychologist for free, lowering the pension age whilst lifting the amount of the age pension and other Centrelink benefits above the poverty line. We also have policies in terms of building public and affordable housing, saving native wildlife from extinction and so forth. The cost of those will be met by actually ensuring that big corporations pay their fair share of tax, because currently 1 in 3 big corporations don't pay any tax. So we have the source of the funding and we have the policies to actually use that source of funding to actually ensure that life is better and more equal and more dignified for all people. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Next, we have Greg Olson representing the Labor Party.
Thank you. Yes, I grew up in the country, and when I finished my schooling at Castlemaine High, went to Melbourne Uni, and to work. I studied further in music, social work, and public policy. A number of years in the city, before returning to live in the country where I grew up and looking after and supporting my parents. I'm a life member of the Labor Party because I believe the Labor Party is a party of reform. It's a party that seeks to always establish a fairer society for all, an opportunity for all. I'm proud to be that life member of the party that established Medicare, and it's interesting that Medicare has been established as a value in our society, and it's represented on the platforms of other parties as a core value. That's but it was established by the Labor Party, and also other examples like the NDIS. Broad reform policy that seeks to create a fairer society, and even examples like the recent signing of the Gonski Agreement to ensure that every child is fully funded in public schools. These are core values of the Labor Party, and I'm proud to and feel privileged to be the candidate to work towards the re-election of the Albanese government. I think we need to certainly stay the course, and there's enough momentum now based on the sound economic management that's been demonstrated over the past 3 years. That the Albanese government is certainly able to continue to build this country for the future, and not regress, as I believe some aspects of the coalition government, the coalition opposition, are demonstrating
Thank you, Greg.
with their cuts. Thank you.
Now we have Dr. Anne Webster from the Nationals.
Thanks, Lauren. I'm assuming this is working, yes. Good evening, everyone. I have had the great privilege of representing the amazing electorate of Mallee for the last 6 years. During that time, I can tell you, despite what has been stated, that there is a vast difference in what Mallee receives and the investment that is made in Mallee when a coalition is in government versus when Labor is in government. Specifically, the first 3 years of my time in Mallee, $2 billion was invested in Mallee, and that was on our roads, our infrastructure, healthcare, a range of investments that made life in Mallee better. In the last 3 years, what we have seen is that roads have greater potholes. I don't need to tell you this because you live here and you know there has been less money invested. In fact, we've got 95% less invested. I have the numbers. So I think that we need to understand the difference between a coalition government and a Labor government. Obviously, we vote. We vote with our feet when we go to a polling booth, but the whole nation votes. And what we have seen over the last 3 years is that the regions have been robbed, whether it's healthcare, whether it's in roads, whether it's in infrastructure, and whether it's in other policy that has hurt us out in the region of Mallee, and they have bought votes in the city. And I am fundamentally very angry about that, and I will continue to fight for that. The job of being the member for Mallee is not a light task. Not that I ever thought it was in the first time I ran for this job in 2019. But just this year, to give you an idea, we have worked with 100,000 cases. We have 167,000 people in Mallee. Is that seriously my time?
That's it.
Dang. Okay, I'll come back.
And lastly, we have Adam Veach from the Trumpet of Patriots.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me today. I was born in Katherine, Northern Territory, and moved to Almore with my grandfather as a soldier settlement. Moved to Bendigo not long after that to do my schooling, high schooling, and started my employment there. So I started as an apprentice chef and worked in a few different jobs just to find what I enjoyed doing. I drove trucks. A stint of mine was working in mental health and disability advocacy. I just hate unnecessary suffering. So it wasn't a job that didn't pay well, but it was very rewarding. And also at the same time, I volunteered for the Office of Public Advocate and the Community Visitors Program, which was all through Central Victoria, visiting places, residential care services, supported residential services. And around the same time, I also was a volunteer, White Line, youth mentoring, which is very rewarding. And all that experience showed me that I really do love to advocate. It's a passion of mine, along with the other passion of mine is currency commodities trader. And that's a point of interest. I don't do that for money either, but it gives me a scope on global geopolitics and how all countries are faring. So understanding that, the position Australia is in with our natural wealth in the ground being extracted, and we're not getting any benefit from it. So we should be the UAE of the Southern Hemisphere. We shouldn't be paying income tax. We should be rolling in money, but we're not because of the Lima Declaration. If you don't know what that is, I'd suggest you look that up, because that's where In 75, the government sold all their resources and minerals to foreign nationals, multinational companies. That is a big concern of mine. And the divide, distract and deceive governance that we're under at the moment, it's got to stop. And we can't move forward in prosperity until we right this ship. Because what we're doing, if we're $1 trillion in debt, no leader is addressing how they're going to pay that down. It's going to come out of our pockets. We need to tax our resources, our minerals, so these multinationals, these people buying China, they can pay this debt down for us. $1 trillion. That's an incredible amount of money.
Your time's up. Thank you. So now we'll move to audience questions. The public will have an opportunity to come up and ask any questions of the candidates. Something I didn't mention before, candidates will also have 2 minutes to answer, just so that we have fair and balanced response to the questions. So anyone who would like to come up and ask a question, I invite you to come up and sit up here by the lectern. I'll start off with an audience submitted question that I received from the Nillan District Sporting Club. The Nillan District Sporting Club is one of the largest membership-based sporting clubs in the region. They're continually advocating to upgrade facilities to meet the demands of ever-growing and vibrant community to future-proof the town. They ask, what do the candidates believe can be achieved in rural communities when funding is extremely competitive and often seen as opportunities for marginal seats and growth corridors, rather than support the communities who need it most? Who'd like to go first on this one? Adam?
Yeah, well, I've been in contact with a sports club. So when we pay tax, I think there's a level of expectation that we expect from our tax dollars. And these lot we're in this room, to be properly funded, have nice amenities and facilities for the community, because this is a hub. All these little country towns, there's a football club, cricket club, tennis clubs, they all use the same facilities, and it's a very, very important part of the community. These not being funded, the same thing, come back to the level of revenue that the government spend and try to buy votes with these sugar hits, and they say, oh, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, and it doesn't. I was at a football club, and then for 9 years, they pledged to upgrade our thing, and they're still not done. They've pledged it again this year. So, and that's a story I hear all across the people I talk to through the Mallee and people I've spoken to for a long time.
What I'd say is that the Coalition have committed to, and it's because of the Nationals, a regional Australia Future Fund, which is a $20 billion fund that will remain in perpetuity into the future, so that we actually stop that kind of stop-start if it gets promised at an election and then it doesn't happen, as poor Davis Park has at nil. That will allow $1 billion a year to go into regional communities. It's not Bendigo, Ballarat, Geelong. That is regional communities. Yes, it will be competitive, because it has to be competitive. We have a responsibility in government to ensure that clubs are asking for the right thing, for the right reasons, etc., because it's ultimately taxpayer money that is being doled out. It doesn't belong to the government, it belongs to taxpayers. So the Regional Australia Future Fund, I'm very excited about. The Building Better Regions, local roads, community infrastructure funding for any councillors who happen to be watching. That funding was warmly received under the Coalition, and has been diminished, replaced with other funds eventually after a review that went on for 200 days instead of 90 days under Catherine King. And that funding will continue under us for a period of time as well. So it's ensuring that regional communities get the dollars as opposed to it being siphoned elsewhere.
Yes, is this on? Yep, great, thanks. I met with the Nillan District Sporting Club last week, and what I love about what they're doing and what they're doing right is their sports club covers multiple sports. There's one board, one president, one club rooms, and it's shared by football, netball, cricket, hockey and soccer. And I think that's such a good model for smaller, but, you know, as Neil is, growing community. As I mentioned, they were identified by the department to receive funding for their club rooms under the coalition government, but the Minister, Nationals MP Bridget McKenzie, did override that decision in what became known as the sports rorts, and I think that was really unfortunate, and I'm sure it was a very difficult time for them. I understood actually that there has been commitments made to them, and I think that's terrific, and I have personally committed to keep advocating for that, and I have called on Labor to actually match that funding, so I do hope that they do that. It's so important that we actually embrace what sports does for communities. We know that it holds the community together, it keeps the community going. You know, when Woomerang, where I grew up, lost their football club, you know, that really was such a loss of important mental community social support for the men in that community, and we saw the impact of that. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. I think I was aware of that example from that sports rorts controversy. I think it's always regrettable when proposals for development of sporting facilities that are so crucial to communities become political footballs, in a sense. Really, there just simply needs to be a fair process of assessment and submission for funding to improve community facilities on merit, and it's a simple principle because it's obviously understood how integral these facilities are to communities and to the life of communities. Having grown up in a country town and seeing the boys training on a Thursday night, it really does. And even coming into this facility tonight and seeing the photographs on the walls of the netballers and footballers and what have you, it really brings it home just how integral they are. And I think it's regrettable that there would be any sort of any discrepancies in those sorts of processes to assess the merits of those proposals.
Having grown up in a small country town, Pennyroyal in the Otways, playing tennis for Pennyroyal, playing cricket for Deans Marsh, playing baseball, I can understand that it's really important for communities to have a sports network. There's not a lot of money being spent on the communities, but it really brings communities together. So it needs to be looked at. If you elect me, I will see what I can do. There's a lot of things that until you get a lot of like-minded people into government, it's hard to get anything done. Thank you.
Just reiterating what some of the other candidates have also experienced with this very active sports group, and I credit them for the hard work they've done in the last 4 to 5 years. And I can relate to them thoroughly, as we also here in Swan Hill, a club that I'm associated with, have had a major development, and we were very fortunate enough to obtain funding, but it is a very competitive bucket of money to take out of. And some of the solutions that we need to avail our communities like this sporting club in Nil, and now moving to their stage 2 of that development, is giving the communities secure funding that they can go and get without having to compete and constantly apply and constantly wait until something happens. And unfortunately, as been mentioned here, some of the issues that have taken funding from them, like the sports routes, which I'm not going to go into. But what I will say is the Australian Citizens Party have a solution for these problems, and that is we re-establish a People's Postal Bank. That is, we can go in, obtain money, funding, loans for these sorts of projects within our community, supported by a bank that is a true credit bank, where money is in the community, goes to those banks, stays in the community, and then the community borrow that money. That's how this system works. The system we're faced with now is banks are just taking from the communities, they're leaving their communities and abandoning communities like the ones we have here in the Wimmera and the Mallee.
Thanks, Chris. We'll start taking questions from audience members now.
Hi, my name's Donna Johns. I'm from Doon. As a member of Mine Free Wimmera Farms, Wimmera Mallee Environmental Agricultural Protection and the Dunmunkle Land Protection Group, all incorporated groups which advocate for the protection of Wimmera farms from mining and renewable projects. The reason for me to attend today is to find out where the candidates present here sit with the question I propose to ask shortly. Just so that you know, our farm is impacted by the Avon Bank mining project, which will see us not being able to live in our home for 36 years. It's heartbreaking, it's been stressful, it's taking its toll on my family. I have had to come out of my comfort zone to attend many community events just so that our voices are heard. So my question is, if your party is fortunate enough to be elected, what policies does your party have in place for the protection of prime agricultural land from proposed mining projects? Don't rush to answer me.
I'm very much against fracking land because that, most farmers know, that destroys the farmland. When it comes to mining land, it's farmland first. We've got to feed people. It's not about importing all our food from other countries. It's about people in the city remembering that our food comes from the country. And mining just destroys a lot of things. There are places to mine stuff, but farmland is not the place to mine. It's a place to farm. Thank you.
As a former farmer, I also highly prize and value agricultural production, whatever it may be, grain production or whether it's fibre as well, or dairying, as I was a former dairy farmer. And I don't agree with any sort of mining prohibits or inhibits the process of producing food and fibre for this nation and indeed for the world. Yes, we do have policy set in place with the Australian Citizens Party, and we invest. We'll be investing in national food security and fuel security. We have fuel security policies and food security, live export policies, and also those are coupled with ending the Coles-Woolies duopoly. But I would fight for any farmer, if I had to stand with a pitchfork at their front gate, to defend their land from mining. And it's questionable what they are mining. So if they're mining for renewable energy, that's another level of insanity.
Is it Donna? Yeah, really. I just find this extraordinary. We don't have laws that protect people's rights, and it's really quite extraordinary. I don't think people actually understand that this can be done to people, that you can actually be forced off your land even though you own it, and this whole idea of, owning the topsoil or the, first top, but actually that you actually are forced to leave because someone can access what's beneath that. I just find it really extraordinary. And I think part of the issue is that people do not get, unless they've, exposed to it and experiencing it, they do not get that this can happen. So I think that's one of the things we need to elevate, the truth of what's happening here. I put a post on my Facebook today, so you might want to have a look at that. That kind of covered my view, and the Greens' position on this. And I know that Sarah Mansfield, who's a state MP, and Sarah Hodgins-May, who's a federal senator, have engaged with the community at Avonbank Sands. They have actually written to the Environment Minister to actually ask them to reconsider the project's approval. And that's what's devastating. It has been approved, but it's not necessarily the end of it, and certainly this election might show that there are some opportunities there for that, reconsidering that decision. The Greens actually have a policy of protecting food sources. We have an agricultural and biosecurity election policy. We do not believe that responding to climate change means destroying our farming lands. That is absolutely not our policy. Yes, there is a transition to renewables, but there's ways that you can do it that don't involve destroying people's farmlands and taking their livelihood away. We need arable and ecologically significant land to be protected. That is our view. We need the community to be, have power over their communities, not shareholders, and particularly not shareholders who are overseas. I wish you all the best, Donna.
Thank you. Donna, I also hear your concerns, and certainly were I elected, it's certainly a matter I would obviously be taking on board. It is one of those issues that I've become obviously very aware of in my travels around the Mallee, and the issue of arable land and mining. It's a very difficult issue. However, as I said, if I were elected, I would certainly take on your concerns and.
Taking them on is not going to cut the mustard. Sorry.
I understand that. It's a complex issue. It's a very complex issue.
Well, Donna, you know that I've been working with you for some time to try and get some traction on this. I fundamentally think that prime agricultural land should remain prime agricultural land. It's primary industry. It's called that for a reason. And while the Nationals support mining, it has to be about place. And arable agricultural land, of which Mallee is pretty well, consists of that. We have always been a farming region, generation after generation after generation, just like your family. And to have the guts ripped out of your land with no confidence that rehabilitation will actually mean that you can farm to the same level of productivity is of great concern and needs to be investigated further. And it's why I've said to you, I intend to bring, depending on how the election goes, a soil expert down here with the appropriate minister, because this information needs to be resolved. Should the coalition win government, I know David Littleproud has said exactly the same thing, that while we're not against mining, we absolutely want to see agricultural land remain with its full purpose able to be achieved. And that includes you being able to live in your home. And I think the other thing that you haven't raised, understandably, because it's pretty complex, are the manufacturing businesses that will be impacted by the Avonbank mine. The other thing that completely disgusts me is that the EPBC approval was given during caretaker mode by the department on the basis that it wasn't controversial. Clearly, they have not been listening to one word or read one word of the submissions that have been made. So there is much more that needs to be done, and the fight isn't over yet.
Thanks for your question, Donna. Just another example of politicians pandering to special interest groups. That's all about the money. They'll extract anything out of anywhere. If they're lobbied and there's some kickbacks, you can't say there's not corruption. As we just heard, it was true. And it's terrible, absolutely terrible that the government continue to put their special interest or their party donors ahead of landowners. And again, it goes back to the Lehman Declaration of pretty much we can do what we want in your country. But that's gone from fee simple, where you actually own your property, to the Torrens title, where you don't. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's the system we're in at the moment. Obviously, we'd all fight for the Mallee to be left untouched because it's a primary production area. It's a big area too. Like, it's probably one of the most important parts of Victoria as farmers, generational primary production and our prosperity, really. And they just want to, you can't live there. We want that. See you later. Yeah, it's not good enough, but that's why we need to put the uni party last, get them out of office, send a clear message to the government that this is our country, this is our land. You can't just come in and just take what you want when you want just because you're getting kickbacks from your donors or party special interest groups. So, yeah. Thanks, Donna.
Thank you. Next, we'll have a submitted question from Frances McDonald. She's asked the candidates, what do the candidates think of think has caused the cost of living crisis, and what steps will help alleviate the pressure on Australians?
Can you repeat that again, sorry?
Yeah, sure. What do the candidates think has caused the cost of living crisis, and what steps will help alleviate the pressure on all Australians?
Inflation, the excessive amount of money in the economy causing inflation. Your buy power is maybe 40% of what it was 10 years ago, so your money's worth a hell of a lot less than it was. That's a main contributor. The fact that we don't get royalties, we don't get taxes from the resource mineral sector. That's just taken all our profits, all our commonwealth. It's called commonwealth for a reason. It's our wealth of the commoners. Now, they're just walking out the door with it, and it's affecting everyone. So with inflation, the loss of revenue, and you have a reduction in the global economy with China and the US trade tariffs, we're going to the slowing down of the global economy. So it's only going to get worse. So until we seriously get some decent revenue from our commonwealth, then we're just really kicking the can down the street.
I agree inflation has a great deal to do with it, but excessive government spending, which doesn't actually lead to an increase in productivity, is also a huge problem. So the larger our care industries get, the larger the amount of money that is going out the door to public servants, to places where no money is actually being made, that is a problem for Australia. And we've set a path really for what we expect. And I think winding that form of expenditure and the expectation of what should be earned with that money spent, what should be gained, is a difficult one to break, but it's one that we seriously need to look at. So being a responsible government and managing money wisely is a tough decision, a multitude of decisions that need to be made, but is the way to prosperity for Australia.
With the post-COVID period, clearly the disruptive effects of COVID have had a profound effect on the world economy, and prices, and supply chains. However, we have come through it. We're still sort of emerging from that period. We are not in a recession. Inflation has come down. When the Albanese government was elected, it was 6.2%, or 6.1%. It's now down to 2.4%. And now we've got interest rates coming down. We've got unemployment is low. So there are these good indicators that of recovery from that COVID period. And I believe that certainly in terms of the other costs of living measures to do with pharmaceutical benefit scheme, capping medicines, these sorts of measures, and obviously more energy relief, and legislating for stage 3 tax cuts. These are levers that do impact broadly, I believe, in easing those cost of living pressures on families. Even other examples of cutting HECS debt for students. These are important measures that have an overall impact on reducing the cost of living.
Yeah, thanks for that question from Francis. Look, I think there's a few things. I agree the tax burden is actually predominantly on individuals, not on the big corporations. So actually getting that 1 in 3 big corporations that are currently not paying tax in Australia, but still making big profits and sending them to their shareholders to pay tax will go a long way to bringing that money back, which then you can do things like lift income support payments for people on the age pension and on other Centrelink benefits, including Job Seeker. We actually have an economic system that's designed to have unemployed people. It's actually part of the design. So it wouldn't work if we didn't have people on unemployment benefits. So if you lift income support payments above the poverty line, then they actually spend that in their communities. It's one of the best things to actually put money back into small businesses and communities, is to actually lift the income support for age pensions and other Centrelink recipients. The supermarkets, the banks, they make billions in profits. Even, it's just heartening when the whole thing with interest rates, it does not hurt the banks, it only hurts people. So the Greens have policies to actually regulate the banks so that if the RBA lowers the interest rate, the banks are regulated, they must also do that themselves. And I think pretty much everyone on this table agrees that we actually have to address the supermarket duopoly and the price gouging that they do. Last one, the housing crisis. It has been 30 years in the making, particularly stopping building public and social housing. But there's not just one fix, there are multiple fixes, including through the taxation system, including building more public and affordable houses, including rent caps, so that, rent is not out of control, and also the regulation of the interest rates that I just talked about. Thanks.
Where to start? If we think about the housing problem, Albo actually said that it's been a problem 40 years in the making. Albo said 40 on the TV the other day. Do we trust Albo? What I know is whether it's 30 years or 40 years, both parties, the Liberals and the Labor, have been in power and the problem keeps getting worse. So I don't believe that either of those have got the right answer for it. When it comes to other costs of living, yes, you're absolutely right. Our gas goes overseas, and we people with revenue from gas, that should be paying for a lot of things in Australia instead of just basically giving it away for free and charging up through the nose if we're running LPG on our barbecue or in a fuel excise. The money's not going where it is. I know that Liberal Party says drop it down to 25% less or 50% less for 1 year or 25 cents off. The Libertarian Party has been saying get rid of the fuel excise tax for years. If you're only dropping it for 12 months, you're only kicking the can down the road, as someone else said, for basically 12 months. So it's not a cost of living relief in the long term. Look, the government wastage is there. We're about to... Now, this is a state government issue. All farmers are about to get hit with increased fire levies of $6,000, $35,000, $50,000, way up from what it used to be. And this is going to get passed probably 2 weeks after, or 1 week after our federal election, when the state government starts sitting. And firefighters are getting together and trying to fight this with a protest coming up in the next week or two. So just keep an eye on that one, please. The cost of Westgate Bridge, which, look, I'm sure Eastlink would have actually done it in 3 or 4 years, but it's 10 years anniversary last year. This is the 11th year. They still haven't finished the tunnels. The extension from the Eastern Freeway to the Ring Road, building a railway line from Frankston to go underground towards Ringwood.
Thanks, Jeff. Your time's up.
Thank you.
As we know, this cost of living crisis has been labelled as has not happened overnight. It has been many, many years in the making, and now we have is the symptom of all that. But there are some underlying factors that the population need to know about. We need to reform the failed regulator ASIC. They are, and we hear this nonsense that is drummed on by the coalition about foreign students taking up housing for Australians. Well, that's just nonsense. ASIC has allowed all of these foreign investors to come in willy-nilly and just buy up large tracts of real estate. And there lies our problem. We, the Australian Citizens Party, will look to have ASIC reformed as the corruption happening in that organisation, if you take your time to look and read about it, is absolutely breathtaking. However, the Australian Citizens Party have a solution for the cost of living crisis, and that is the Aussie Post Office Bank. That will alleviate the cost of living by protecting your savings, saves our post offices, keeps cash in the community, alleviates the housing crisis by enabling loans to be given at low interest rates to people who need to buy housing. It'll eliminate banking crimes. As we know, we talk about the big four the largest corrupt organisations in this nation. Fun fact, the big four banks are amongst the 4 most profitable banks in the top 12 most profitable banks on the planet. You work that out. How does a country's population of 27 million have 4 banks that are the most profitable on the world? And it will save our banking services and renew our industries.
Yeah, Greg Huff, live on the outskirts of Horsham at Riverside. My question is in 2 parts, and I'd like the candidates to answer both parts. I have 1 wife, 2 daughters and 2 granddaughters. First question is, what are you and your party doing or planning to do to protect my women and girls from the men who want to play women's sport and use women toilets and change rooms? Second part, which political party or parties are responsible for allowing this to happen?
wants to take on that one first.
Biological men are biological men. Biological women are biological women. Neither should play sport unless it's a co-ed sport. So keep men out of change rooms. We're not into the woke agenda. We would like to see the end of the woke agenda. Thank you.
Thanks for your question. And our party, although we don't have any specific policies on those specific topics, I think the community expectation is that we keep men or boys, girls and women in their respective sports, and we don't mix them all up. So that would be my personal position on that, and I would fight for anyone who finds themselves in a situation where they have boys in women's sport or girls' sport, and they have a problem with that. So once again, the position I have, even though it's my personal position, biological men, X, Y, and XX, that's how it is, and that's the way it should remain.
Thank you. The science isn't that clear in terms of there being one or the other. The people are born intersex, and they often do have health issues as well from being born intersex. If you don't have experience with that, I appreciate that, because it might not be something that everyone knows. Someone that's probably someone who is born intersex, and being that they actually have elements of both. They can have for example genitalia of both. It is just there's no just either one or the other. There are differences. I actually played football. I played football for Kyneton, and did win a grand final too, which was lovely. But in my football team there was a trans woman, and what I think people don't understand is you can't just put a dress on or whatever, or put a women's football outfit on and go and play. At every level of sport, whether it's community level, whether it's VFL women's level, this is in football, or whether it's AFL women's football, there's testosterone standards that you have to demonstrate for up to 2 years. So to play in community women's football, you actually have to show that your testosterone levels are below 6, and then I think it's about below 2 for VFL women's, and I think it's lower than that for AFL women's. So it's not just you walk on the field and start playing. You actually have to demonstrate where you're at, and that you have to get that information from proper testing through the medical system to be able to play. There are very strict rules. It's not unregulated. It's very highly regulated, and I really welcome you just having a look at that, because sometimes misinformation just doesn't help to have the kind of inclusive and welcome society that I think rural Victoria actually prides itself on. Thanks.
Well, thanks very much, Nicole, for that very good answer. I certainly endorse Nicole's observations and her knowledge on that subject. And clearly, there are, I've no doubt, perhaps there are situations that have arisen that have been of concern for parents, but I think that there just simply has to be certainly at the very least, a degree of tolerance and non-judgmental approach to this sort of issue. It's a complex issue. It's not black and white, and I think to some extent the premise of the question is certainly attempting to create a sense of controversy and division. I think that there has to be tolerance in these sorts of matters, absolutely.
Well, I think the question and the questioner asks and has a position that the vast majority of people actually would agree with. And, I think about my granddaughters and sharing toilets with those who identify as a girl when they've been born biologically male. I've been myself into a university toilet block where it had, talking about inclusivity, the sign on the door was, if you've got a problem sharing these bathrooms with males, then you're the one with the issue. I actually don't agree with that. I think I've also been to a restaurant in Melbourne about 3-4 years ago before it was trendy. They had no boy or girl toilets, they had just one toilet, and they were partial cubicles, and the fellow in the toilet next door to me happened to be 6'4". I had a problem with that, and I think most women would have a problem with that. I think what we're seeing in sports around the world now, and in legislation that is being made in other countries that see themselves as being more progressive perhaps than Australia, is that things are starting to turn when you've got a fencer who gets down on her knee and refuses to play because her opponent is stronger than her, bigger than her. There is no way it's going to be a fair competition. I think there are legitimate questions that are being asked now that need to be asked, and I think that we need to have a common sense approach. You know, perhaps even there should be trans games. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, so as a Christian, there's only two genders. Not really negotiable. If you want to cross-dress or you want to pretend you're a girl, is one thing, but to try to compete at a amateur or professional level against biological men in women's sports is, I think it's a show of character, really. I think to go in there knowing that you are stronger, genetically superior, I think they really should probably have a good hard look at themselves to try to win under them circumstances. And that's just another thing. I've got granddaughters too, and the very thought of a male in the change room with them, I mean, that creeps them out, and it's just not right. I think they tried to push it on us, and now we push back, and people are going, "Nah, that's not on. We're not doing it." All across the world, that swimmer that just absolutely blitzed everyone, and the girl, and she's gone on talking tours around America about her experience coming second, missing out on her medals and stuff like that. And I think, everyone's starting to wake up to this woke agenda and just had enough.
Yes, hello, my name is Kathy Ross and I'm over 50 kilometres south of Horsham. I'd like to know, for those who are in the minority or an independent, how successful have you been when campaigning on issues, and how effective will you be in the minority? My understanding is that the smaller parties and independents have more bargaining power in the upper house rather than the lower house, because policies are made in the lower and they go to the upper, and it's the independents who seem to have the say there. So how effective will you be in the minority for our area?
Yeah, you just got to be firm in your convictions. So there will be time, obviously, if you're a minority, they will want my vote, but there'll be sweeteners. Oh, we'll give you funding for this, give you funding for that, and that's how it all works behind the scenes. There's a lot of it's done behind the scenes. So it's just, you got to be strong in your convictions. You just got to stand your ground and not be brought out by the bigger parties for your vote in certain legislation, and you look after here and we'll look after you in this section. So it's just advocating on the behalf of the people and not letting anything get in between the electorate, their needs, and just being a strong advocate.
Yep, Greens have been in negotiating position in the lower house and in the Senate, so I think they have pretty good experience. So one of the examples, well, that's coming in and out. Sorry, lift it up. Slide my hand up. Okay, thanks. One of the examples a couple of years ago was when the backpacker tax was introduced, and it was kind of right at the point where I think they were all going off for their summer holidays, and whilst the Greens were prepared to pass it, they weren't prepared to pass it just like that. And they actually negotiated for hundreds of millions of dollars to be invested into land care to get that backpacker tax, which is just a different tax rate for specific backpackers who come in here on specific visas, to get that to go through, right at the, midnight before they all went on their holidays. So the Greens have, significant experience with that in the lower house and in the Senate. And because the Greens have very clear policies and very consistent policies, there's not that kind of flip-flopping around. They set them out there, the most transparent party with policies, and they don't deviate from that. They absolutely hold firm to those policies because they are in the best interest for all people.
The Libertarian Party, we're very independent. We don't have people funding our elections. All of my funding to my elections been coming out of my pocket. Now, the ambition with most of the candidates that we've got running in Victoria is to try and get Jordan Ditloff elected to the Senate. In the Senate, with other independent senators that are not Green, that's when we start being able to make a change to stop bad policies, not passing things. We're not here to ever vote for a tax increase. So we're not like Greens. We're not going to go and do a deal and allow a backpacker tax to be increased because that goes against our policies. But it's about working with people like even One Nation and trying to make a difference to stop bad policies from actually passing the upper house. Eventually, if we get enough people in the lower house also, then we can make a difference where whether it's a major party, Liberal, National, or the Labor, Green, Teal, where they require libertarians, we're still going to hold true to our values, but it's going to make them harder to pass poor legislation that's going to affect people. So really see us as the brakes in Parliament, whether it's the lower house or the upper house. In the upper house is where we plan on making the difference first, and hopefully you're going to see that after this election.
Thank you for your question. The Australian Citizens Party, what you may not know, we are always in Parliament working with those in the halls. We've already achieved a lot for a party that's not elected into the House of Representatives or the Senate, although we have had in the past an Australian Citizens Party when it was formerly the Australian, the electoral CEC, Central Electoral Council of Australia. We've been working with the Christine Holgate and the Australia Post debacle. We working with the financial victims of the Sterling collapse in West Australia in the federal parliament. We've been working with the regional bank closures on the Australian and collaborators in the Senate for the inquiry. We've also been working with democratic oversight on the banking system. We've been defending the principles of democratic accountability for the Reserve Bank. And we are on the cusp of achieving quite possibly our most impressive victory is establishing a post office People's Bank for regional Victoria. And that is pertinent for the Mallee because the Mallee is of the most worst affected electorate in Australia. We have lost the most banking branches across our electorate than any other electorate in Australia. So that's what we've already done, even though we're not elected. So that's what we're doing and continuing, even though we're a minor independent political party.
I've just got one more question. Oh, well, I've heard some people say that that they want a fairer society based on equal to all. What policies do you have in place for reward for effort? I'm a farmer, not a corporate farmer, with my husband who works on an average of 70 hours a week, and I believe that today's policies, legislation and regulations are crippling farmers. So what can you do with policy to reward for effort, especially on farms?
Sorry, we have run out of time for questions and we need to wrap up from each of the candidates. Thanks, Kathy. If we would like to start at the other end with Adam, just a 1 minute wrap up and last pitch from yourself.
All right. Well, are we all sick of the uni party merry-go-round? We've been on it for a long, long time. It's time to get off. It's time to take back our country. Now we need proper representation. When you pay tax, you get represented. We don't get represented. Special interests, multinationals get represented. Weak men, weak leadership has created hard times. So we need to elect strong leaders so we can have some good times. Not just for now, in the future, but for future generations. We can't leave it like this, and we can't leave it another 3 years, because we've been doing that. 3 years, gets worse. 3 years, gets worse. Never $1 trillion in debt. Our legacy is going to be the debt we pass on to our family and future generations. So this country was an inheritance from our Anzac. Now it's our turn to fight for this country, get it back.
Thank you. Well, thank you for running the evening. It's been really interesting to hear the questions, and I'm sure there's a lot of feedback that we'll receive on the Facebook Live responses. As we go into the final days of this election, I'm conscious that there is so much that needs to be done for regional Australia in particular. I don't purport, and I never will purport, to stand for the cities. They have enough representatives there. For me, this is about Mallee. And we need healthcare that we can afford. We need the doctors in our regions and the health workforce in our regions. And we have policies to ensure that that happens should the coalition be elected. We need food and energy that we can afford. And again, we have policies to ensure that our grocery prices will come down, that our fuel will be more affordable, that our energy will be affordable, and that we can go into the future positively. And finally, very quickly, I will continue to fight for farming communities, because they are the backbone of this entire region.
Yes, thanks again for the opportunity to be here tonight. It's a great privilege to be the candidate for Mallee and to represent the Labor Party, and to really come to grips with some really complex issues as we've discussed tonight that characterise this great seat. I believe that. At the same time, I'm also proud to be representing the Labor Party and to seek the re-election of the Albanese government. I believe that the sound economic management that's been demonstrated over the past three years, with a very determined focus on building positively for the future, we need to continue that progress, stay the course. Now is not the time, particularly given the broader uncertainty around the world. Now is not the time to change by any means. We cannot afford to even contemplate the cuts that are being proposed by Mr. Dutton, and certainly we need to steer well clear of the proposed nuclear policy as well. That is a huge. That is just for me. I think it's a moral issue.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think if you want change, you do need to vote for it. I just want to quickly come back to Kathy's question about reward for effort. If you've heard about diplomatic immunity, you probably think that applies to diplomats that come over to Australia. It applies to any foreign government-owned entity in Australia. So a foreign government-owned, not just like a foreign ownership. And it applies to farms in Australia that are owned by foreign governments. The Canadian Education Department Super Fund owns farms in Australia. Diplomatic immunity means they don't pay tax. So you've got farmers, family farmers, you know, one side of the fence who are paying taxes. The other side of the fence, you've got a foreign government-owned farm not paying taxes. These are absolutely things that need to be addressed. These are things that people don't see, and I'm absolutely committed to ensuring that there is like equal opportunities, equal footing for everyone that kind of does go out there and wants to actually contribute to a more egalitarian place. We have to actually change some of those laws. Thank you.
I certainly agree that there's a lot of multinationals getting away with not paying their fair share of tax in Australia. But you can't keep increasing taxes and taxes out of into prosperity. The only way to increase prosperity is to reduce the size of government, reduce the size of the government's need for money, and reduce taxes. Otherwise, we're just going, we can't tax ourselves into prosperity. Thank you.
Well, I hope tonight has brought revelation to you guys, but I would ask you that if you want change and you break with the major parties and consider an independent political party like the Australian Citizens Party, because we will fight for national sovereignty, we will fight for economic sovereignty, we will fight for integrity in government, we will fight for national resilience. We will reform the governance by banning corporate donations and ensuring justice for financial victims and protecting whistleblowers. Strengthen food and fuel and energy security with public ownership, regional investment policies benefiting Australians all over corporate interests. Economic sovereignty, of course, returning Australia's banking services back to the people. Establishing a public Australia Postal Bank. Supporting local industries, affordable housing, secure banking services, and a national credit boost productive capacity to fund infrastructure and create a stronger future. Let's be citizens taking responsibility.
Thank you, and thanks to all the candidates, not only for attending tonight, but putting your hand up to stand in the seat of Mallee for this election. Thanks to everyone who came out to Coghlan Park Community Centre, and all those who have tuned in via our Facebook page. We'll post a video of the forum in coming days, and we'll also have a full wrap-up in this week's weekly Advertiser. Thanks, everyone.